Some of the world's richest collectors can buy almost any diamond they want. So why are they spending years searching for certain pink gemstones instead? The answer isn't beauty, it isn't size, and it isn't simply price. By the end of this documentary, you'll understand why some pink gemstones are treasured for something far rarer than diamonds themselves, and why once you know their stories, you'll never look at gemstones the same way again. Let's begin with the pink gemstone that almost everyone thinks they already understand. Number 15, rose quartz. For generations, luxury has been almost automatically associated with diamonds. Walk into nearly any jewelry store, and the brightest display cases reinforce the same message. The most valuable gemstones are the ones everyone already recognizes. Yet the world of elite collecting follows a very different set of rules, ones that often reward rarity of story, geological significance, and cultural meaning long before public popularity. Few gemstones illustrate this lesson better than rose quartz. At first glance, rose quartz seems like an unlikely candidate to open a documentary about extraordinary collector gemstones. It is neither the rarest pink mineral nor the most expensive. In fact, its soft, translucent glow has made it one of the most familiar pink gemstones on Earth. That familiarity, however, is exactly what makes it so important. Experienced collectors understand that recognition and value are not the same thing. Rose quartz owes its delicate color to microscopic mineral inclusions, formed deep within the Earth's crust over immense geological timescales. Rather than producing the sharp brilliance associated with faceted diamonds, nature created something entirely different, a gentle luminosity that appears to glow from within. Large, exceptionally clean specimens displaying even color are surprisingly difficult to obtain, particularly those suitable for museum-quality carvings or exceptional display pieces. Its influence extends far beyond mineralogy. Ancient civilizations treasured rose quartz for ornamental objects, ceremonial artifacts, and decorative works long before modern jewelry markets existed. Over centuries, it became associated with craftsmanship, symbolism, and artistic expression rather than simple displays of wealth. That distinction still resonates with many collectors today, who often seek pieces carrying geological character and historical significance instead of only commercial prestige. This difference reveals one of the greatest misconceptions in gemstone collecting. Public attention usually follows famous names. Serious collectors often follow knowledge. Understanding that distinction changes the way every gemstone in this documentary will be viewed. Some of the extraordinary pink treasures ahead are virtually unknown outside specialist circles, yet they command extraordinary respect among museums, auction houses, and advanced collectors for reasons that have little to do with mainstream recognition. And that raises an even more intriguing question. If one familiar pink gemstone can completely reshape the definition of value, what happens when nature creates a pink gemstone so uncommon that even seasoned collectors may spend decades searching for a truly exceptional example? That journey begins with the next remarkable discovery. Number 14, pink Chalcedon. If rose quartz challenges the belief that familiarity defines value, pink chalcedony reveals an even deeper truth about the natural world. Perfection is not repetition. Every extraordinary gemstone exists because millions of tiny geological variables aligned only once, in one place, under conditions that can never be recreated exactly the same way again. That idea is easy to overlook until two pink gemstones are placed side by side. To an untrained eye, they may appear nearly identical. Yet experienced gemologists immediately notice subtle differences in tone, saturation, translucency, internal texture, and the way light softly scatters beneath the surface. Those differences are not imperfections. They are geological fingerprints, quietly recording the unique environment in which each crystal formed over millions of years. Pink chalcedony is one of the finest examples of this phenomenon. Unlike transparent gemstones that rely on brilliance and sparkle, high-quality pink chalcedony captivates through its remarkable uniformity and silky glow. Its delicate color develops as microscopic quartz fibers grow together in extraordinarily stable geological conditions. Slight changes in mineral chemistry, groundwater composition, temperature, or pressure can transform the final appearance entirely. The result is that no deposit and no individual specimen produces exactly the same shade of pink. For collectors, this is where fascination begins. The search is rarely for the largest stone or even the most expensive one. It is for a specimen whose color feels almost impossible to describe. Neither pastel nor vivid, neither opaque nor transparent, but balanced in a way that seems uniquely crafted by nature itself. That subtle distinction often separates an ordinary gemstone from one worthy of a distinguished collection. This appreciation reflects a broader shift within today's collector community. Increasingly, attention is moving away from standardized luxury toward individuality. Rather than seeking stones that look identical under showroom lighting, experienced collectors are drawn to gemstones whose subtle variations tell a story that cannot be duplicated. Nature, after all, does not work from blueprints. Every crystal preserves a singular geological journey, shaped by conditions that disappeared long before human history began. Recognizing those hidden differences transforms the act of collecting from acquiring beautiful objects into understanding Earth's creative process itself. But geology is only part of the equation. Even the most extraordinary natural color can gain an entirely new level of significance when it becomes tied to a specific place, a remarkable discovery, or a chapter of human history. And that is where the next pink gemstone begins to reveal why origin can become just as valuable as the gemstone itself. Number 13. Pink opal. The rarest gemstones are not always the ones that capture the imagination. More often, it is the stones with unforgettable stories that leave the deepest impression on collectors. This is where pink opal quietly separates itself from many other pink gemstones. Unlike crystalline gems formed under intense pressure deep within the Earth's crust, pink opal follows an entirely different geological journey. Rich in hydrated silica, it develops when mineral-laden water slowly fills fractures and cavities in ancient volcanic landscapes. Over immense spans of time, those delicate deposits solidify into soft, pastel-colored gemstones whose gentle appearance hides an extraordinary geological history. Yet geology alone is not what makes exceptional pink opal memorable. Collectors have long understood that every important gemstone carries two identities. The first belongs to nature, the chemistry, the crystal structure, and the geological forces that created it. The second belongs to history, shaped by the people who discovered it, the landscapes where it emerged, and the cultures that gave it meaning. Pink opal demonstrates this relationship beautifully. Some of the most admired specimens originate in the Andes of Peru, where deposits have been known for centuries. Their distinctive blush color has become inseparable from that landscape, giving the gemstone an identity that extends far beyond its physical appearance. Remove that connection to place, and much of its character disappears. Provenance in the world of serious collecting is often as valuable as the gemstone itself. This explains why two seemingly similar stones can inspire completely different reactions among experienced collectors. One may simply be attractive, the other carries documented origins, a recognizable mining district, and a story that can be traced across generations. That history transforms a beautiful mineral into a meaningful artifact. The principle reaches far beyond pink opal. Throughout the finest private collections and museum galleries, gemstones are admired not merely for what they are, but for where they have been. Every documented origin adds another chapter, every previous owner another layer of significance, and every remarkable discovery another reason for future generations to preserve them. A gemstone, in other words, becomes far more than a product of geology. It becomes a witness to Earth's history and humanity's fascination with its rarest creations. But an extraordinary origin introduces another question entirely. What happens when a gemstone is found in only a handful of locations on Earth, making its birthplace almost as exclusive as the gemstone itself? That answer begins with the next remarkable pink treasure. Number 12. Morganite. The previous gemstone revealed that a remarkable story can elevate an ordinary mineral into something unforgettable. But within the world's finest collections, another factor often carries just as much weight. Location. Not simply the country listed on a certificate, but the exact geological environment where a gemstone first emerged from the Earth. Morganite offers one of the clearest examples of why geography has become a form of prestige in modern gemstone collecting. Discovered in the early 20th century and later named in honor of financier and legendary mineral collector J.P. Morgan, Morganite quickly earned recognition for its elegant peach-to-pink hues. Yet experienced collectors rarely judge an exceptional specimen by color alone. The first question is often much more revealing. Where did it come from? That simple question opens an entirely different conversation. Morganite forms within granitic pegmatites, extraordinary geological bodies created during the final stages of magma crystallization. These environments produce some of Earth's largest and most chemically complex crystals, but only a handful of regions possess the precise combination of heat, pressure, fluids, and rare elements necessary to create fine pink beryl. Brazil, Madagascar, Afghanistan, Mozambique, and parts of California have each produced remarkable specimens, yet none are truly identical. Every locality leaves its own subtle signature. One deposit may produce warmer salmon tones, another yields crystals with exceptional transparency. A third becomes celebrated for unusually large museum-quality specimens that almost never appear on the market. These differences are invisible to most casual buyers. To experienced collectors, however, they are as recognizable as the accent of a person's voice. This is why provenance has become one of the most respected forms of knowledge within elite collecting. Owning a gemstone from a legendary mining district is not simply about possessing a beautiful crystal. It is about preserving a fragment of one of Earth's most extraordinary geological environments, an environment that may never produce another specimen of equal quality again. That reality explains why auction catalogs devote entire pages to describing a gemstone's origin before mentioning its measurements or estimated value. Geography has become part of the gemstone's identity, yet even the world's most celebrated mining districts share one unavoidable truth. No deposit lasts forever. Every year, productive veins become harder to reach, exceptional crystals become more difficult to recover, and legendary sources slowly begin to fade into history. When that happens, a gemstone's birthplace transforms from an advantage into something far more powerful, a resource that can never be replaced. And that changing reality is exactly what makes the next pink gemstone so compelling. Number 11. Pink Topaz. Every collector eventually learns a lesson that no textbook can fully explain. A gemstone does not become extraordinary the moment it is discovered. It often becomes extraordinary the moment people realize there may never be another one like it. That shift in perception has transformed countless forgotten minerals into legendary collector pieces, and few illustrate this principle more clearly than natural pink topaz. Unlike many gemstones whose color develops naturally during crystal growth, truly fine pink topaz is remarkably uncommon. Most topaz found around the world is colorless, blue through treatment, or shades of yellow and brown. Naturally pink material represents only a tiny fraction of global production, with the finest examples historically associated with a limited number of localities, particularly the pegmatites and gem-bearing regions of Brazil and a handful of other deposits. But rarity alone does not explain why experienced collectors pay such close attention. The real story begins underground. Gem deposits are not endless reservoirs waiting to be uncovered. They are finite geological events created under highly specific conditions millions of years ago. Every exceptional crystal removed from the earth is one fewer that future generations will ever have the opportunity to discover. As productive veins become exhausted, the market changes in subtle but important ways. Collectors begin preserving rather than replacing. Museums become increasingly selective. Auction houses highlight provenance with greater emphasis than ever before. The conversation quietly shifts from "where can another one be found?" to "will another one ever be found?" That single question has reshaped the way many serious collectors evaluate gemstones. Natural pink topaz embodies this changing mindset. The appeal extends beyond its delicate color or remarkable clarity. It represents a geological chapter that cannot simply be restarted once the most productive sources decline. Each exceptional specimen becomes part of a shrinking historical record of what nature produced under conditions that no modern technology can recreate. This is why scarcity should never be measured only by how many gemstones exist today. It should also be measured by how many exceptional examples the Earth is still capable of producing tomorrow. That perspective explains why some collectors are willing to wait years, or even decades, for one extraordinary gemstone rather than purchasing dozens of ordinary ones. Yet even scarcity has its limits. Owning something rare is impressive. Understanding why it is rare carries even greater prestige. And that distinction introduces the next remarkable pink gemstone, where knowledge itself becomes one of the most valuable assets a collector can possess. Number 10. Mahenge Pink Spinel. There is an old assumption that luxury is measured by recognition. The more people have heard of a gemstone, the more valuable it must be. Yet among the world's most respected collectors, the opposite is often true. Some of the most admired gemstones are precisely the ones that the general public has never heard of. That is why Mahenge Pink Spinel has become one of the most fascinating names in modern gemstone collecting. For decades, Spinel lived in the shadow of ruby and sapphire. Before modern gemology, many famous rubies in royal collections were eventually identified as Spinel instead. Its reputation was shaped not by what it was, but by what people mistakenly believed it to be. Everything changed after remarkable discoveries near Mahenge in Tanzania. The deposit produced spinels with an astonishing range of vivid pink and neon pink colors, remarkable transparency, and exceptional crystal quality. Experts immediately recognized that these stones possessed a combination rarely seen in nature. Rather than competing with rubies, the finest Mahenge spinels established their own identity, earning admiration from museums, specialist dealers, and collectors who understood exactly what they were looking at. That distinction reveals something important about collecting. Knowledge creates confidence. Anyone can purchase a famous gemstone because its reputation already exists. Recognizing the significance of an overlooked gemstone requires something far more valuable: understanding. Experienced collectors often spend years studying mineralogy, mining localities, treatment history, crystal chemistry, and auction records, not simply to acquire beautiful objects, but to recognize extraordinary specimens before they become universally celebrated. Mahenge Spinel perfectly illustrates this philosophy. Its appeal is not driven by advertising campaigns or decades of consumer marketing. Instead, its reputation has grown almost entirely through gemological excellence and informed appreciation. It represents a world where expertise quietly outweighs popularity. This explains why two collectors may stand before the same display case and see completely different things. One sees a beautiful pink gemstone. The other recognizes an exceptional geological event from a celebrated locality, preserved in a crystal whose color, clarity, and provenance may never be repeated under the same natural conditions again. That difference cannot be purchased. It must be learned. And perhaps that is the greatest luxury of all. Because once knowledge begins shaping desire instead of reputation, beauty alone is no longer enough. The next remarkable pink gemstone proves that collectors eventually start asking an entirely different question. Not whether a gemstone is beautiful, but whether its beauty can survive the passage of time itself. Number 9. Kunzite. By the time a collector reaches the highest levels of the gemstone world, something unexpected begins to happen. Beauty slowly loses its power to surprise. That may sound impossible. After all, gemstones have captivated humanity for thousands of years because of their extraordinary colors and brilliance. But experienced collectors eventually discover that breathtaking appearance is only the beginning of a much larger story. Kunzite illustrates this transformation perfectly. Discovered in the early 20th century and named after renowned gemologist George Frederick Kunz, this remarkable variety of spodumene immediately attracted attention with its delicate shades of pink and violet. Under the right lighting, exceptional kunzite seems almost weightless, displaying a luminous glow that appears to float inside the crystal rather than merely reflecting from its surface. Yet collectors rarely stop at admiration. Instead, they begin asking far more demanding questions. Is the color naturally saturated or unusually pale? How evenly is that color distributed throughout the crystal? Has prolonged exposure to light altered its appearance? Does the gemstone retain exceptional transparency despite its impressive size? Are internal fractures minimal enough to preserve both beauty and structural integrity? These questions reveal an important truth. In elite collecting, beauty is not judged by first impressions. It is judged by endurance. Kunzite is especially fascinating because it possesses one characteristic that challenges even the most experienced collectors. Its beautiful pink color can gradually fade after extended exposure to strong sunlight, a natural property that demands careful preservation. Rather than diminishing its appeal, this fragility often increases respect for truly exceptional specimens that have retained their original brilliance over decades. A museum-quality kunzite is therefore more than an attractive gemstone. It is evidence of careful stewardship, favorable geological formation, and remarkable survival. This explains why professional evaluations rarely begin with adjectives such as beautiful or dazzling. Instead, experts examine stability, transparency, crystal quality, provenance, cutting precision, and long-term preservation. Those invisible qualities separate gemstones admired for a moment from gemstones remembered for generations. The lesson reaches far beyond kunzite itself. The world's finest collections are rarely built around the stones that capture attention most quickly. They are built around the stones that continue revealing new qualities long after the first impression has faded. And that raises another fascinating question. If some of the most treasured pink gemstones require extraordinary care simply to preserve their beauty, what happens when nature creates a gemstone whose very fragility becomes part of the reason collectors treasure it so deeply? That remarkable story belongs to the next extraordinary pink discovery. Number 8. Pink zircon. Collectors often spend years searching for something extraordinary, but finding it is only half the challenge. Keeping it extraordinary is an entirely different achievement. That reality explains why some of the world's most respected gemstones are admired not despite their fragility, but because of it. Their beauty survives only through knowledge, patience, and careful preservation, qualities that distinguish a true collector from a casual buyer. Pink zircon is a remarkable example, frequently confused with synthetic cubic zirconia because of the similarity in name. Natural zircon is one of Earth's oldest minerals. Some zircon crystals have survived for more than 4 billion years, preserving evidence from a time when the young planet itself was still taking shape. Although pink zircon is considerably rarer than its more familiar blue or golden varieties, what truly captures the attention of specialists is not simply its color. It is the balance between brilliance and vulnerability. With a refractive index high enough to produce exceptional fire, well-cut pink zircon can display flashes of light that rival many famous gemstones. Yet beneath that remarkable sparkle lies a crystal structure that demands careful handling. Over centuries of natural geological stress and human wear, facet edges can soften, surface abrasions become more visible, and older stones often reveal subtle signs of the journey they have endured. For experienced collectors, those characteristics tell a story rather than represent a flaw. An exceptionally preserved pink zircon demonstrates something rare, not only favorable geological formation, but decades, sometimes generations, of thoughtful care. Every crisp facet, every undamaged edge, and every vivid flash of light reflects a history of preservation as much as a history of nature. This perspective reveals another quiet truth about elite collecting. The most valuable possessions are not always the easiest to own. Sometimes they require restraint instead of display, protection instead of constant admiration, and respect instead of routine use. In many distinguished collections, preserving a gemstone for future generations is considered just as important as acquiring it in the first place. Pink zircon embodies that philosophy beautifully. Its brilliance attracts attention, but its vulnerability commands respect. That combination transforms the gemstone from a decorative object into a responsibility, one that connects its future to the decisions made by every owner along the way. Yet even a gemstone requiring extraordinary care can still be found again under the right conditions. The next pink treasure tells a far more dramatic story. It represents a type of discovery that is becoming increasingly uncommon, where each exceptional specimen recovered from the earth may leave even fewer waiting to be found. Number 7. Rubellite Tourmaline. There was a time when remarkable gemstones seemed almost limitless. every decade brought news of another promising discovery, another mining district, another crystal that appeared to redefine what nature could create. That era shaped the belief that if one exceptional gemstone was missed, another would eventually appear somewhere else. Today, that confidence is quietly fading. Modern collectors understand something that previous generations rarely had to consider. The Earth is not producing fewer gemstones. It is producing fewer extraordinary discoveries. Rubellite Tourmaline tells this story with remarkable clarity. Unlike many gemstones that display only subtle variations of color, fine rubellite possesses an intense pink to red saturation that remains vibrant under different lighting conditions, a characteristic that immediately separates exceptional material from ordinary pink tourmaline. Achieving that balance requires an unusually precise combination of chemical elements, geological pressure, temperature, and crystal growth over millions of years. Nature succeeds far less often than many people imagine. Finding one exceptional crystal is already uncommon. Finding another of comparable quality from the same locality becomes increasingly difficult as productive deposits mature. This changing reality has transformed the way serious collectors think. Attention is no longer focused solely on what exists today. Instead, attention shifts toward what may never be found again. Legendary pegmatite deposits in Brazil, Nigeria, Afghanistan, Mozambique, and Madagascar have produced extraordinary rubellite specimens over the decades, yet many of the richest sections have become progressively harder to access. As mining advances deeper into the earth, recovery becomes more expensive, exceptional crystals become less predictable, and each new discovery carries greater significance than the one before. For experienced collectors, that trend changes the meaning of rarity. A gemstone is no longer valued simply because few examples exist. It becomes valuable because the probability of discovering another specimen of equal quality continues to decline. That subtle distinction explains why remarkable rubellite has earned growing respect among specialists. Every outstanding crystal represents not only millions of years of geological history, but also a discovery that may become increasingly difficult to repeat. In many ways, collecting becomes an act of preserving the Earth's finest geological achievements before they quietly disappear from active production. Yet even this growing scarcity reflects only part of nature's complexity. A gemstone may become rare because discoveries are becoming less frequent. The next remarkable pink gemstone reveals something even more astonishing. Its rarity was determined long before the first crystal ever reached the surface, encoded within its atomic structure from the very beginning, making science itself the key to understanding why some shades of pink are almost impossible for nature to create. Number 6. Pink Spinel. Every extraordinary gemstone begins with a story. Some are written by history, others are written by geography. But a select few begin with something even smaller, something invisible to the human eye, an atom. That is what makes pink spinel one of the most fascinating gemstones ever studied. Its beauty is immediately recognizable, yet the true miracle lies far beneath its polished surface. Every remarkable shade of pink preserved inside a fine spinel is the result of atomic events that unfolded millions of years before the first crystal ever reached daylight. Nature rarely allows such precision. Spinel forms under intense heat and pressure, often alongside marble-hosted mineral deposits that have undergone profound geological transformation. During this process, trace amounts of specific elements become incorporated into the crystal lattice. Those microscopic substitutions subtly alter the way the crystal absorbs and reflects visible light, producing colors that range from delicate pastel pink to vivid, almost electric tones. The difference may involve only tiny quantities of trace elements. Yet those nearly invisible variations determine whether a crystal appears ordinary or unforgettable. This is why gemologists often describe pink spinel as one of nature's finest demonstrations of geological chemistry. Nothing about its color was painted, enhanced, or assembled. Every hue emerged naturally from a sequence of physical and chemical conditions so remarkably balanced that reproducing them exactly would be virtually impossible. That realization changes the way collectors see the gemstone. The admiration is no longer directed solely toward the finished crystal. It extends to the extraordinary chain of geological events that made its existence possible. Millions of years of tectonic movement, immense heat buried deep within ancient mountain systems, atoms aligning inside a growing crystal with astonishing precision. All of those events had to succeed before a single exceptional pink spinel could ever be discovered. Perhaps that is why collectors often speak of these gemstones with unusual respect. Owning one is not simply possessing a beautiful mineral, it is preserving evidence of an experiment conducted by the Earth itself. An experiment that lasted longer than human civilization has existed. Science in this case does not diminish wonder, it amplifies it. Because the more geology reveals about how difficult it is for nature to create an exceptional pink spinel, the more extraordinary each surviving crystal becomes. Yet science alone has never determined what humans desire most. Throughout history, culture has often transformed remarkable gemstones into enduring symbols of prestige, power, and legacy. And the next pink treasure reveals exactly how that transformation begins. Number 5. Pink sapphire. Science explains how a gemstone is created. Culture explains why humanity refuses to forget it. That distinction marks the point where a beautiful mineral becomes something far greater than the sum of its geological origins. Few pink gemstones demonstrate that transformation more completely than the pink sapphire. Long before laboratories could analyze crystal structures or identify trace elements, sapphires had already become symbols of authority, permanence, and prestige. For centuries, they appeared in royal jewelry, ceremonial regalia, and treasured collections across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. While blue sapphires often commanded the spotlight, exceptional pink sapphires quietly developed a reputation of their own among those who valued rarity over tradition. Unlike fashion, culture accumulates slowly, each remarkable gemstone passing through a royal treasury, a historic collection, or an internationally recognized museum adds another layer to its identity. Over time, the stone begins to represent something that cannot be measured by color, clarity, or carat weight alone. It becomes part of history. Pink sapphire owes its delicate color primarily to trace amounts of chromium within the mineral corundum. Yet chemistry alone cannot explain why outstanding specimens consistently command such admiration among collectors. Their appeal has been shaped over generations by the stories attached to them. Stories of royal commissions, celebrated jewelry houses, distinguished private collections, and prestigious auctions where exceptional provenance often receives as much attention as the gemstone itself. That pattern reveals an important truth about collecting. People rarely pursue objects, they pursue meaning. An extraordinary pink sapphire is admired not only because nature created it, but because history continued writing its story long after the crystal left the earth. Every documented ownership, every appearance in a significant collection, and every carefully preserved record transforms the gemstone into something increasingly difficult to separate from its cultural legacy. This explains why museums devote enormous effort to preserving provenance alongside the gemstone itself. A crystal without its story remains beautiful. A crystal with an unbroken historical record becomes a cultural artifact. For serious collectors, that difference changes everything. The gemstone is no longer simply admired, it is remembered. And history has an extraordinary habit of rewarding what it remembers. Yet even cultural significance cannot fully explain why certain pink gemstones inspire almost mythical admiration among specialists. Some stones transcend both science and history, entering a category where rarity itself becomes legendary. That is precisely where the next remarkable pink gemstone begins its extraordinary story. Number 4. Padparadscha Sapphire. Markets create trends. Legends create permanence. That difference explains why certain gemstones continue captivating collectors long after fashions have changed, auction records have been broken, and entire generations have come and gone. Padparadscha Sapphire belongs to that rare category. Its reputation was never built on abundance or widespread recognition. Instead, it emerged from something far more enduring, a combination of extraordinary natural rarity, cultural identity, and a color so unusual that even experienced gemologists continue debating exactly where its boundaries begin and end. The name itself offers the first clue. Derived from a Sinhalese word often associated with the delicate color of a lotus blossom at sunrise, Padparadscha describes more than a gemstone. It describes a phenomenon that nature almost never repeats. Unlike conventional pink sapphires, true Padparadscha displays an exceptionally balanced mixture of pink and orange. Shift the color too far in either direction, and the stone loses the very characteristic that defines it. This extraordinary equilibrium results from an intricate combination of trace elements and geological conditions that few deposits have ever produced consistently. For that reason, genuine Padparadscha sapphires have long been associated with Sri Lanka, although small quantities have also emerged from Madagascar and Tanzania. Even among these sources, however, only a tiny fraction of crystals satisfy the strict standards accepted by leading gemological laboratories. That remarkable rarity gave rise to something even more valuable than scarcity. It created mythology. Collectors often speak of Padparadscha in almost reverential terms, not because it is impossible to find, but because finding one that possesses the ideal color, natural origin, exceptional clarity, and minimal treatment can become the pursuit of an entire collecting lifetime. This illustrates a fascinating truth about human nature. People rarely remember the gemstone that was simply expensive. They remember the gemstone that seemed almost impossible. Its story is repeated in auction catalogs, museum exhibitions, and conversations among specialists because legends possess a unique ability to outlive markets. Long after prices fluctuate, the narrative remains intact, inspiring new generations to continue the search. That is why Padparadscha occupies such an extraordinary place in the gemstone world. It is admired not merely as a crystal, but as a benchmark, a reminder that nature occasionally creates something so finely balanced that language itself struggles to describe it. Yet even legends have limits. Some pink gemstones are valued not because they have become famous, but because the finest examples are so exceptionally scarce that they cannot realistically be replaced. And that is where the next extraordinary gemstone takes the story to an entirely different level. Number 3. Imperial Pink Topaz. There is a point in every great collection where rarity is no longer the defining question. The real question becomes far more difficult. Can this ever be replaced? That single idea separates ordinary collectibles from true masterpieces. An object may be rare because few exist. An irreplaceable object is different. Its combination of origin, quality, history, and natural formation is so extraordinary that finding another example becomes almost unimaginable. Imperial Pink Topaz represents that distinction with remarkable clarity. Unlike commercial varieties of topaz found in many parts of the world, the finest natural pink and pink-orange specimens have historically been associated with a remarkably small mining region near Ouro Preto in Brazil. For generations, these deposits produced crystals whose color, transparency, and natural elegance established an international standard that few other localities have approached. Yet geology offers no guarantees. Every exceptional crystal removed from those historic veins represents millions of years of natural processes that cannot simply begin again. Once those geological conditions disappear, the Earth cannot be persuaded to recreate them within a human lifetime. That reality fundamentally changes how collectors evaluate these gemstones. Attention shifts away from price. Attention shifts toward replacement. Could another specimen with the same color balance, crystal integrity, documented origin, and natural beauty realistically appear again? For many museum-quality Imperial Pink Topaz specimens, the honest answer becomes increasingly uncertain. This explains why some of the world's most respected collections are built patiently over decades rather than assembled quickly through wealth alone. Experienced collectors understand that money may purchase an available gemstone. It cannot create another identical one. Every crystal preserves an unrepeatable sequence of geological events, and every outstanding specimen quietly narrows the number of comparable examples remaining in existence. That is why curators often describe exceptional gemstones as part of Earth's natural heritage rather than simply luxury objects. Once lost, damaged, or permanently removed from public view, something far greater disappears than a beautiful crystal. A chapter of geological history disappears with it. This is where collecting begins to resemble preservation. Owning an irreplaceable gemstone carries an unexpected responsibility, not merely to admire it today, but to ensure it survives for generations still to come. Yet even an irreplaceable gemstone may continue to exist somewhere in the world. The next remarkable pink treasure tells a far more dramatic story. Its greatest source has already fallen silent, forever changing the future of one of the most celebrated gemstones ever discovered. Number 2. Argyle Pink Diamond. Every remarkable gemstone tells a story. Some begin with ancient mountains, others begin with extraordinary chemistry. The story of the Argyle Pink Diamond begins with an ending. For more than 3 decades, the Argyle mine in the remote Kimberley region of Western Australia produced one of the greatest geological surprises of the modern era. Although the mine supplied a significant portion of the world's natural pink diamonds, those extraordinary stones represented only a tiny fraction of its overall production. Out of millions of carats recovered, only an exceptionally small percentage displayed the vivid natural pink color that would later captivate museums, auction houses, and the world's most discerning collectors. Their beauty alone was remarkable. Their rarity was astonishing, but neither explains why Argyle pink diamonds became legendary. Everything changed in 2020. After years of operation, the Argyle mine officially ceased production. The closure marked far more than the end of a successful mining project. It signaled the conclusion of one of the most extraordinary chapters in modern gemology. Overnight, the world's most famous source of natural pink diamonds became part of history. That moment fundamentally changed the way collectors viewed every existing Argyle specimen. The conversation was no longer about future discoveries. It became about a finite legacy. Every authenticated Argyle pink diamond instantly became part of a collection that could never grow again. No new production from the same legendary source would replenish the market. Every exceptional crystal already recovered would forever represent one of the final surviving examples from a geological event that nature had taken billions of years to create. This is why provenance became more important than ever. Collectors no longer sought merely a beautiful pink diamond. They sought a documented connection to one of the most celebrated mining localities in the history of gemstones. Certificates, mine records, and documented origin became inseparable from the stone itself because they preserved the final link to a source that had permanently fallen silent. Few events reshape an entire collecting category. The closure of Argyle did exactly that. It reminded the world that some natural treasures cannot be replaced simply by waiting for another discovery. Geological history does not repeat on human schedules, and some chapters close forever. Yet even the Argyle pink diamond represents only part of the answer to a much larger question. If the world's most celebrated source could disappear, what then is the one quality that truly makes any gemstone priceless? The final pink treasure reveals that the greatest luxury has never been rarity alone. It is the existence of something that nature can never create in exactly the same way again. Number 1. Pink Taaffeite. Imagine spending centuries searching the earth for a completely new gemstone, only to discover that it had already been cut, polished, and sitting in someone's collection all along. That is exactly how pink Taaffeite entered history. In 1945, Irish gemologist Richard Taaffeite purchased what appeared to be an ordinary pink spinel. It looked identical to countless gemstones that had passed through jewelers' hands for generations. But under magnification, one tiny optical detail changed everything. The stone displayed double refraction, a property Spinel simply does not possess. What followed stunned the gemological world. Laboratory analysis confirmed that the gemstone was not Spinel at all. It belonged to an entirely unknown mineral species. To this day, Taaffeite remains the only gemstone first identified after it had already been cut and faceted for jewelry, rather than being discovered as a rough crystal in nature. That extraordinary beginning hints at just how unlikely its existence really is. Pink Taaffeite forms only when magnesium, beryllium, and aluminum combine under an exceptionally narrow range of geological conditions deep within the Earth's crust. Even the slightest variation in temperature, pressure, or chemistry prevents the crystal from forming. The result is a gemstone so scarce that only a tiny number of gem-quality specimens have ever reached the market. Most originate from the gem gravels of Sri Lanka, with only a handful found in Tanzania and southern China. Unlike diamonds, sapphires, or emeralds, Taaffeite has never supported a major commercial mine. Many professional gemologists will spend their entire careers without ever examining a fine pink specimen in person. That rarity has earned pink Taaffeite a unique place among elite collectors. It is admired not because the world recognizes its name, but because so few people ever have the opportunity to own or even see one. In many respects, its greatest luxury is anonymity. Perhaps that is the greatest irony of all. Humanity searched for new gemstones across mountains, deserts, and remote frontiers for centuries. Yet one of the rarest treasures on Earth had been hiding in plain sight, mistaken for something ordinary, until someone finally looked closely enough to reveal the impossible. And perhaps that is the true definition of rarity. Not simply something that is difficult to find, but something the world never realized it had found at all. Perhaps the greatest treasure wasn't a pink gemstone at all. It was understanding that true rarity isn't measured by price. It's measured by the stories that nature can never create twice. If you enjoyed this journey, let us know which gemstone fascinated you the most in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more extraordinary stories hidden beneath the Earth's surface. Thanks for watching.